Good day to you. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Want to look at a question from the Bible. If we read Revelation chapter 6, verse 17, for the great day of his wrath, now this is God's wrath, has come, and who is able to stand? Now we're taking this a little bit out of its setting, maybe a little bit out of context. But when we look at and think about the day of God's wrath, when we think of the judgment, who is able to stand? Who is going to come through and survive the judgment? Who's going to come through God's wrath? Well, Jesus gives us the answer in several different places. If we look at Mark chapter 13, verse 13, he says, "And you will be hated by all for my name's sake." Now realize he's speaking to the disciples, and thus he's speaking to us. He says, "But he who endures to the end shall be saved." So in other words, if we remain faithful, if we continue to believe and follow Christ, we will be saved. Then again, the Lord speaks to us in Revelation chapter 2, verse 10. "Do not fear any of those things which you are about to suffer. Indeed, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison, that you may be tested, and you will have tribulation 10 days. Be faithful until death, and I will give you the crown of life." Now that is a victor's crown that he's promising in this letter to one of the churches. And this does apply to us as Christians, because in the age we live, in the society we're in, and we see things degrading all the time, we could suffer persecution like this. We could end up going to jail for our belief in God. It has happened before in other nations around the world, and it will happen again. Somewhere in the world, it is happening now, most likely. So we have to realize that Christians can be persecuted, and in a forward-looking way, too, we have to expect, especially in the society we see nowadays, we have to expect that we're going to face some persecution. We're going to have some trouble. And that's part of what he was talking about back in Mark chapter 13, verse 13. He's saying, "You will be hated by all for my name's sake." Sometimes in some groups, Christians are just automatically hated. And that is true. So we need to be aware that if we want to be able to stand, if we want to be able to face God with a good conscience, and to know that we are saved and one of his children, then we're going to have to be able to endure some of these things. Finally, in Revelation again, I'm studying Revelation a lot lately, so I chose this here. Chapter 22, verse 14, "Blessed are those who do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life, and may enter through the gates into the city." Now this is the final city, what we think of as heaven, the New Jerusalem, and this is where we will live with the Lord and with God our Father, and that is what we call and refer to as heaven. So to get there, notice we need to do his commandments. His commandments are to love and care about each other, to love God first of all, but to also love and care for each other, and to help one another, and to stand true for the Lord. And sometimes that's going to require a lot. Sometimes we're going to have to speak the truth in love to society. And society is still not going to like it, even if we're kind about it. If we say, well, homosexuality, it is a sin. If we say, you can't really change your sex is what you are made, and that will never change. These things right now are pretty frowned upon. Some people will hate you for saying them. But there are Christians who struggle with these things. There are Christians who struggle with homosexuality or being tempted. And there are Christians who struggle with wanting to change their sex. Does that make them any worse than you or I with whatever issue we may have? Maybe we struggle with lust or anger. I don't know that that makes them any worse. I'm just saying, I know there are Christians who struggle. We each have our different weaknesses and struggles. So we have to allow for that, and we have to have grace. But at the same time, we have to speak truth to grace. If I'm getting angry out of line, or really if I'm just getting angry, perhaps if you say, well, let's not get too hot, that's a fair statement. I should probably back it down a notch, right? And just think about it and think, well, would the Lord really be angry about this? Is this something where I have righteous indignation? Probably not. Most of the times, probably not. But anyway, to get back to our question, who is able to stand? The ones who are the children of God, who are following the Lord. That's who can stand. We have to endure to the end, whether that be to the end of our life or until the Lord comes in the clouds in the sky, like is described. So, I want to thank you for listening. Hope you have a wonderful day. May God bless you and keep you safe. And remember, God loves you.